Okay, our guest today is Gregory Behrendt, who is a comedian, musician, co-author of He's Just Not That Into You and several other books. Also fellow podcast host slash guru,
Don't Take Bullshit from Fuckers podcast.
Don't Take Bullshit from Fuckers, as well as a life and relationship coach. Greg Behrendt, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thank you.
Of course.
Thanks so much for coming on. I had the pleasure of going on your podcast recently.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me. So, Greg, we have so many questions for you today. So, first of all, can you just tell a little bit about yourself to our listeners? Maybe elaborate on what Jared just said.
About me, about what's so great about me?
Yes.
Yeah, do it.
Well, I started out as a comedian. I've been a comedian for 30 years. That's what I do. I still do it. Not as much as I used to, but I still do it. And then I sort of segued into television writing, and then television writing sort of segued into books. And then I became famous for writing a book. And so I've had kind of a multifaceted career. I've done a lot of different things.
That's
and
amazing.
not expecting to do any of them.
Yeah.
I hadn't planned to do any of these things.
So, Greg, He's Just Not That Into You it was like a worldwide sensation, and we've both like listened to the book. I actually really I feel like this book could be like Leanna's like Bible, because for folks who, I don't know how you haven't read it, but if you hadn't, what I appreciate about it is it talks about all the ways that men make shitty excuses in relationships.
Right.
They act shitty in relationships, either not calling when they say they're going to, and you get into all of these kind of typical ways that this plays out, like not wanting to get married and like all of these other things, trying to like sort of do the like casual, let's hook up, but not be anything. And it's, you really kind of call that out and call men out for their shitty behavior, and then encourage women not to accept these excuses and like make excuses for the men. So one of my questions is, do you feel like in 2021 are dudes like better than they used to be? Is it getting worse?
Worse. No, they're far worse. They're far worse. Texting has made things worse. Social media has made things worse. What constitutes a date anymore isn't really a date. I think things are worse. And I don't think men, well, here's the thing. When we originally conceived the book, we wanted to do it for both sexes, because both sexes are capable of giving excuses and doing, there's women that do the same thing.
Sure.
And I know, because I've been blown off before by women. So it's the same stuff. But the publishers were like, men don't read books like this, so just make it for women. So we did. But I think men are not being raised to ask women out, really. I don't feel like I was raised to ask women out. Like my dad was like, you got to ask girls out. You got to have some kind of, game. You got to, put the hustle in. No one's going to come find you. You got to go get it. And I don't know that men are being raised like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think that like with social media, there's so much peacocking now that men consider just putting themselves out there being on social media.
Yeah, and just so like if I'm a dude and I'm like good looking enough and I can like show off my muscles on Instagram, women will slide into my DMs and then I can just sort of select from among them.
Totally. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't know that there's any set sort of rules for dating anymore.
Yeah.
What constitutes an actual date? Spending time with people. People seem to go really quickly to hooking up.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. When I was listening to your book. I struggle with it a little bit, because and I think you agree with this too, but I am a very strong, independent, self-sufficient, assertive woman. And
Mhm.
guys don't come up to me like ever unless they're really creepy. Like I don't get asked out. Nobody comes up to me at the coffee shop, and I make myself very like I smile, I'm very welcoming, I'll make conversations. And I
Mhm.
feel like the number of times that like I feel confident being assertive and asking a guy out. Like, "Hey, I'm interested in getting to know you more. Do you want to meet for coffee sometime?" And I feel comfortable doing that, and I don't want, like, on one hand it would be great if like a guy came up to me and very assertively was like, "Hey, Leanna, I want to get to know you more. Will you go on a date with me?" I'd be like, "What?" I'm sorry, what just happened? Because it doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't happen. And
Right.
so I'm stuck between a rock and
Hard place.
a hard, yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Because I hate the dating apps. I can't do them anymore. They're just, women and men are just like pieces of meat. You're just leaving one right after the next.
Yeah.
And people just don't go up to you anymore in public. And maybe I'm just living in the wrong place. Maybe I need to be in LA or New York, but I, I don't want my power taken away, but I also can't, like, if I didn't ask people out, I would never go on dates.
Right. Right. And I think like when we wrote the book, we were pretty specific that, men would ask you out, that if you waited and, you know, but we also said, hey, you can let a guy know that you want him to ask you out. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with flirting and being assertive and, but ultimately you want them to ask you out. Now, do I feel the same way? I don't know.
Mhm.
I have two teenage daughters that are both navigating dating and all that kind of stuff. And, it's different. It's
Yeah.
just a different world.
Yeah.
It's just a different world. So I don't think there's anything wrong with putting yourself out there. I mean,
Yeah.
because you want to get what you want out of life.
Well, and I think ultimately the goal then, or what I would want, and I'm assuming other women would want as well, excuse me, is reciprocation. So if I'm going to ask the guy out on the first date, he better fucking ask me on a second date if he likes me, right? If he's into me, then
Yeah, totally.
he's the one that should ask for the second date. And I think,
Yeah.
we had that question of like, what would you change? Like, do you think, other than like, okay, a woman can ask a guy, it's 2021, things have changed. Is there anything else that has changed for you since writing the book?
No, not really. I mean, the big principle of the book is to have self-esteem and to know what you're worth and to know that your time is valuable and that you're not somebody that's going to wait around for someone to get their shit together.
Yeah.
you know um and I don't know that dating is like, I don't think it's gotten any easier.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's gotten harder, but it's not gotten any easier. It's a difficult thing. Like, dating is complicated and hard and not that fun. Like, that's the way it's always been.
Mm-hmm. So one of my questions, Greg, because you said earlier that, like you were a comedian and then getting the TV writing job, which led to the book, which has led to so many other things for you, that all kind of happened by accident. And so, but here you are as this person who has written sort of numerous books that have helped so many people in terms of relationships. And so I'm curious for you, like, was there ever a time where you were like a shit show in relationships
Oh,
and
yeah,
how,
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
so
yeah,
like
yeah.
how did that journey from then to here happen for you?
Well, the big thing for me would be the fact that I got sober at a certain point, but I
Mm.
was a mess before that in a lot of ways. Not just that I mean, I was pretty shitty in relationships and made a lot of excuses and did a lot of the things that are in the book. But then I also got hurt by people who treated me badly.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So, but when I got sober, I dated probably 2 people before I met my wife,
Hmm.
and then I met my wife and had a sober, smart relationship that was really different than any other relationship I'd ever had before. I was totally into her. I pursued her, but she pursued me back. It was a good give and take, and we both had the same sort of goals in terms of having family and having a life together.
I'm curious, what did the early stages of that relationship, other than, you being into her, wanting to pursue her, her pursuing you back, were there any other like very noticeable what were the other noticeable differences between when you met your wife and other women that you had dated?
Well, I think the thing I did differently with my wife was I arrived at my feelings on my own time, and I allowed her to arrive at her feelings on her own time. So we went out twice, and then she broke things off with me.
Hmm.
And she said, it's complicated right now. I'm dealing with an old boyfriend, blah, 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 blah. She gave me like what sounded like a bunch of excuses. And I said, okay. I said, fair enough. And she said, call me in a couple of months. And I said, no, you call me.
Yeah,
I've pursued you. Like I pursued you. I like you. I sent you flowers. I did all the things. It's up to you. And then like the very next day she called me, and then she started calling me, and you know what I mean? But then I said, I love you before she said, I love you. And I said, you don't have to, I stopped dating people. We were both dating other people at the time. And I said, I'm going to stop dating people, but you don't have to stop dating people. Like I was really aware of her needs and her life, and allowing her to have what she wanted, and it all worked out.
I love that so much. There's so many facets of that I just think is so beautiful. I also love that she called you the very next day.
Very next. Yeah.
Well, which I think is
she had some excuse for calling me. She called me like 6 o'clock. She called me really early in the morning, and she was looking for an album or something. We're both really into music. She worked in the music industry, and I knew some people that she knew, and she wanted to know something about them. Like she made up this whole thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I can relate to her on that, because sometimes, I have obviously my own stuff, but if I'm dating someone and they're really, really into me, my like trauma response is to run. And so sometimes what I need, and what I have needed in the past, is like to take a moment and to like step back and be like, I need space. And once that is given to me, then I'm all in. It's like I just needed like a little bit of breathing room to like think about where I'm at, what my feelings are, and then I'm usually good to go.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's, in a good relationship, you still are able to retain your own life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't have to compromise. You know what I mean? I mean, you make compromises as a couple because that's part of the deal. But I've never had to be any other version of myself for my wife. Yeah. Unfortunately, she's been okay with not all of them, but most of the versions of myself.
Well, and I also think like that story of you saying, no, you call me, and then she calls you the next day. That's like such a great example of the fact that like there's nothing more attractive than someone who knows their own worth.
Totally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Totally. And I really liked her, but I was like, hey, and I've already put in the effort, and I know it's not going to feel good to chase you. Like it's not going to feel good to like you want to stop this thing, then you let me know when you want to start it up again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I really could. That is something that I could work on. I mean, I have a hard time, like when someone, I feel like they like me, but they're not quite ready or whatever. I can do the excuse thing, and then I have to kind of check myself. But I have a hard time not reaching out just to say, hey, how are you? Because my thing is I have to earn love. Like that's what I grew up with. And so if I can just like convince them to love me, then all of that will be healed. But I need to be better about like, just, okay, like you do you, I'll do me. If you really like me and want to come this way, like, great.
Put in the effort.
Put in the effort. Yeah. I love that though. I hope other people can listen to that too and really gain something from that.
Yeah, I mean, when you first find something really good, your biggest fear is losing it. You're like, oh, I don't want to fuck this up. I don't want to lose this. And so you have a tendency to cling too hard to it and you lose it.
Yeah.
And you forget how slow time is. I mean, how fast time is rather. And the fact that like, you only get the first part of a relationship once.
Yeah.
So you should milk it for all it's worth. That's why we didn't have sex for a month.
Mm-hmm.
At least at like 10 dates, and we wanted to, no doubt, but she would always send me home, and that made it more attractive to me.
Okay. Can we talk about that for a moment?
Let's go.
Because I feel like that has changed a lot too. Like 2021, there's, you're hooking up faster, dating apps, people expect you to have sex on the first date. I was in a relationship where we had sex day 7, I think, and we had a really loving relationship. But I think is what you're saying, like, you're not saying you can't do that, but what you're saying is like, take your time because you never get that back.
Yeah, savor it.
Yeah.
It's like, postpone, sort of postpone your excitement, let it build. And also, I feel like you have a better shot of staying together if you have some familiarity with each other before you fuck.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just is, you've got a dialogue together, you've got some time in, each other a little bit better. Like, I just think can't hurt.
Yeah.
And it's exciting.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. And, that's something we've said on this show, like numerous times, is this idea that like sex without like real trust and emotional safety, like usually doesn't feel good. And one of my things is like, I used to rush too quickly into that. And I would also rush too quickly into like the emotional intimacy of like, let's tell each other our like deepest traumas and about the painful things in our childhoods, and like doing that too quickly, I think also unbalances things. And the way I think about it now is like, the only way to actually build that foundation of trust and safety, and like you said, Greg, like you need to have some familiarity with each other, is just like quantity of time spent together. Like seeing your partner on a good day, on a bad day, like when they're sad, when something's annoying them, having had like some difficult conversations between the two of you, and maybe you've seen them in various facets of their lives, and I think that stuff takes time. But it is definitely, I'm with you too, Leanna. Like that's tough advice to follow, of like trying to like delay that gratification,
Yeah, totally. It is hard to do it. And I don't know what, I mean, people, my podcast partner, Kane, is 30 something or whatever. And so he's just recently out of a relationship, but has been dating. And so I hear all the story. I was never on a dating app, so I have no idea what that's like, but I hear his stories, and things move quickly. They move quickly. And I don't know that, and I feel like people keep getting the same results.
Yeah.
Keep getting the same results.
I also want to say though, I'm sure there are many loving couples that have sex on the first night and it still works too. Like I want to make sure that there's no shame in that, because
it's not about shame. To me, it's more about it's about doing the homework on a human being. It's about doing your due diligence, knowing somebody, and also having some regard for the intimacy of sex. I think a lot of people don't regard what an intimate act it really is. It's the ultimate intimate act. That's all there is.
Mm-hmm.
So having some sort of respect for that and knowing, I don't have to do it right now. I could do it later when I have more information. It's like anything else. You don't just rush out and buy a car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
know?
you brought up Kane a second ago. So you guys have your podcast, Don't Take Bullshit from Fuckers, which we both love.
I love it. It's like I started binging it. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's like empowering.
Yeah,
of
totally.
Like, and so like one of the questions I've been wanting to ask you, Greg, is like, so why are people fuckers?
Why are people fuckers?
Yeah, because I know I've been shitty in relationships and stuff like that, and and so I guess
I'm perfect.
What's that?
I'm perfect.
Leanna's always been perfect,
Uh-huh.
but because part of
You're talking very loudly.
sorry, part of my thing is don't take bullshit from fuckers, but also like don't be a fucker. Like that's something that I think your podcast does as well. And so like what is the root of the problem,
It's just usually selfish, self-centered behavior. It's just people that are more concerned about themselves than they are concerned about you.
Yeah.
And treat you. I mean, it's hard to say. I've been a fucker. Everyone's been a fucker. It's not hard. It's just I think it's noticing when someone is a fucker and being smart enough to just block, and just always be blocking.
Yeah, to like have those good boundaries and stuff like that. Because I wonder when I listen to your podcast, so I'm someone who like I believe that like we talked about trauma on our show. I believe that like hurt people. People are like doing the best that they can. And so like I try to take that compassionate view, but I don't like, am I being too nice to these fuckers, Greg? Or like, what do you think?
Yes.
Sometimes it all depends on the effect that they're having on your life and how they affect the way you think and the way that you go about your business and whether they're sort of adding or not adding. I always think of it like a balloon, where when you're in a balloon, you have sandbags and you cut those sandbags so that the balloon can go higher. And sometimes there's just people that you just gotta cut that sandbag, man, let the balloon fly.
Yeah. I actually love that because I also think like if you have really good boundaries, then then you're not going to have a bunch of like resentment and hurt and whatever. You're like, oh yeah, like, you're like, oh, okay, this person has shown that they're not someone that I want in my life right now. Like, see you later. And you can still totally wish them well, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
like want them to find healing and happiness and whatever.
Totally. Oh yeah, there's plenty of people in my life that I've gotten rid of that I still hope that they do well and want good things for them.
Yeah. Same.
I've put up a wall because their toxicity is too much for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Greg, I'm wondering if we can backtrack a little bit and go back to the book, because if we have listeners that haven't read your book, I guess, why do women, and this isn't a heteronormative situation, women to men, but why do we make excuses for men?
I think women are ultimately a little bit more hopeful, and I think there's just a general feeling among women that there aren't enough men. So take the one that you got and try and fix it. Mm-hmm. As opposed to waiting for that good one. And will I ever find anybody again? And and I don't know why that is, but I just think that it is true that and women are more analytical than men, I think, in a lot of ways. And they spend a lot of time going, well, it could be this. Well, you know what it could be? It could be this. Where I think sometimes men are a little bit more like, yeah, dude, she's not calling.
Yeah. Sometimes I wish my girlfriends would not be analytical, because I'll be talking about a situation and they'll be really positive about it and tell me that he definitely likes me and he's just going through this and I just have to, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't want that advice actually, because then I do become hopeful and then I get more disappointed.
Yeah.
Like, when it doesn't go that way, which it probably wasn't ever going to go that way to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. And if he's going through something, it's like, yawn. Okay. God, I don't care. All right, have your excuse, whatever. You're going through something tough. Okay, boo-hoo.
Yeah. Do you think that I guess, can you summarize the gist of it doesn't, maybe I just need this summary for myself, but basically if there are any excuses, like any amount of excuses, whatever it is, he's just not that into you. Do you still believe that?
It's sort of like, if a guy calls you up and says, look, I can't make this thing. I've got something going on with my family. I can't do it. You're like, okay, that's fine. That happens once, twice. Okay. But once it starts to add up after a while, you start to see a pattern. You're like, okay, this is just bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
You're always using excuses. There's always something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if the guy is into you and not a shitty dude, when he goes, oh, I'm so sorry, I have to cancel, I have this family thing, he'll call you the next day and be like, how about Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, I'm having it with a writing partner right now where I just keep getting emails saying, I'm going to send you something tomorrow night, I promise. And then 3 days goes by and they're like, I'm going to send you. And I'm like, fuck, dude, it's not happening. This isn't a collaboration. This is just me waiting for you to text me back or write me back. And, it's been weeks now, so forget it,
That's so interesting to think of applying it to like professional relationships as well.
Yeah, of course. Oh, yeah.
Partnerships.
All this stuff is good for professional relationships, friendships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you've also co-written at least one book with your wife currently. What is that process like?
We've written 3 books together. It's hard. I'm not gonna lie. It can be hard. It was harder when the girls were younger and there was a lot to do. And so finding the time to write and be collaborative was hard. I like to collaborate and she likes to go write alone and then send it to me and then have me write on top of it or whatever. She's the main, I'm really good at filling things in, but she's really good at laying things out.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. She's the reason our books are good.
Well, and then Greg, can you talk a little bit, how did you get into coaching? And I know that your coaching focuses mostly on musicians, artists, and creative types. And so I'm curious, why that specialty also?
Well, those are just who showed up. I just had people who, I started coaching because a girl that we've had on our show a few times who would be a great guest for you guys. Her name's Natasha Adamo, and she's a coach. And she does very well. And she's got a blog and she's writing a book. She has a book coming out called How to Win Your Breakup. And she contacted me and said, I ran into you in a supermarket years ago and I asked you for some advice and you gave me some great advice and it changed my life. And I think you're amazing. And why aren't you coaching people? And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, I think you would be great at coaching. I think that'd be something you could do that you would really enjoy. And so I sort of gave it a shot. And first I was just coaching relationship stuff. But then I had a lot of writers show up and say, hey, can you help me solve my writing blocks and all that kind of stuff. So, so I do both. Relationship calls really only take one call. And it's just me going, yeah, he doesn't like you. That's all it is.
Well, and then what is the process for for people that are having that sort of writing block or that creative block?
I mean, we figure out things. I tailor a program to whatever it is you're doing to get you through your writer's block. And I read your writing and I give you my opinion and I help you move things along.
That's awesome. If there was, say, like two plucky upstarts with a podcast, what advice?
I am not
would
writing a book with you.
What advice would you have for them? Not to write a book, but just like, because this is a creative endeavor, and I know that like
You're gonna get free advice on our podcast now.
you already hit Greg up for all of the free relationship advice.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I would just continue doing what you're doing. I mean, we found you because you guys are doing well and you're hustling. And I think Kane told me you guys have a sponsor or you're
we
hustling.
have a few. Yeah.
Got a couple sponsors. Yeah.
That's amazing. We don't even have a couple sponsors.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't hustled it the way we should. Kane is now doing it.
I was gonna say, bring me on and I'll be your assistant and I'll get you guys sponsors.
Maybe we will.
There you go. So,
Yeah, but you guys seem to be doing the right things.
Awesome.
Thank you.
That's
I
all
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So Greg, I'm really curious. You mentioned your daughters earlier. Like, how do you try to like how do you and your wife like try to teach them to sort of be empowered in this culture of like shitty male behavior and all the other things?
Well, my wife is a paragon of femininity and self-worth, and the girls really take after her. And I just sort of sit in the background and try and set an example of somebody who's a good male who isn't trying to solve their problems for them or tell them how to do anything. I mean, I'm very hands-off as a parent. Very hands off. I definitely let them come to me when they have something they want to talk about, but I don't barge into their lives. You know, my wife knows all the intimate details and I get the stories, you know, but I'm a father figure, you know what I mean? Like I am man in the house, for whatever that means.
Mm-hmm. What would you say are like the secrets to success of you and your wife's like fantastic relationship, which also includes authoring books together, which is an added?
Oh, we've gone through some shitty times. I've had some problems with it. You know, I've had some addiction problems and there have been some we've gone through some tough stuff together. But at the end of the day, we just want to be together. And it's sort of hard to explain, but we've built something over this long period of time that's so intimate, it's hard to explain. You can't really put words to it. It's just a knowing of each other and loving each other. And I think we've come to terms with who both of us are, and we're still okay with it.
Yeah, I love that so much because I was married for 8.5 years, Greg.
Oh.
And marriage is not rainbows and roses, you know, and I mean, everybody has their reasons for leaving a marriage or getting out of marriage or things ending or long-term relationships, whatever it is. But ultimately, whether you're dating and it's new or you're in a long-term relationship, you have to choose daily if you want to show up. If you have to choose to love that person daily, whether you feel like it or not. And even when you go through the rough patches, where there maybe isn't like a noticeable love, like that's when you decide, are we going to make this work and stay and hash this out? Because there's so much like you said, intimacy that's been built between your lives over a significant amount of time, or is this it? And I think, I don't know, Greg, tell me if you agree with this, disagree with this or not, but I think in our culture, people give up too easily, you know, and that's coming from someone who's divorced. And I haven't really told my story of why we went through that divorce, but I think especially maybe with, well, I don't know, because I was going to say like dating and people break up more easily. I don't know. What do you think about that?
It's hard to say. I think it's just whatever. I mean, ultimately you want to like the life you're living. you know, and sometimes people just get tired of each other. They don't want to do it anymore, you know, and I think that's fair. You know, why, you know, we've been together for 20 years, 21 years. And why we still want to be together, I can't even tell you.
Well,
I
I
can't
mean,
even tell you.
I think one of the
I can't
things,
imagine being married to me. I really can't. It's unreal that anybody has been able to stick it out this long.
I guess maybe what I'm asking is like, do
people give up too easy?
no, because I don't know that that's real fair because we don't know like people's
Sure.
situations. But I guess would you agree that you have okay, here's what I'm trying to say. Sometimes I wonder, like I think every relationship is going to have a massive hurdle that they have to decide if they're going to cross over or if that's it. And there could be multiple hurdles in a single relationship too. Do you think that there's something really special about relationships that do decide to get over that hurdle in a healthy way with, you know, outside support, therapy, that makes that relationship so much more special?
Totally. If it makes sense to be together, you know, there's got to be kind of a reason for your union.
Mhm.
I think there's got to be a reason. Either it gives you pleasure, or you're raising kids, or you've got a business. You know, you've got something that you're working towards together. I think that it has to have forward motion to it.
Mhm.
You know, and if you have forward motion, you can overcome almost anything.
How do you keep that forward motion, Greg, and like in your marriage?
I think it's by ultimately, like, my job is to every day see how I can be of service to my wife.
I love
That's it. A lot of times that means just staying the fuck out of her way, giving her space, you know, but then I try and see what can I do to make things better. And that's really it. And I don't have expectations from her. I don't need her to tell me I'm awesome. I don't need her to tell me that I'm perfect. I don't need her to, she doesn't have to be doting on me all the time or kissing me. I don't have specific, she doesn't have to give me gifts or any of that kind of stuff. She does. And when she does, I love it, but I don't expect it. And I think having lower expectations for your partner is really helpful.
I agree with that. I do struggle with that though, especially in the first couple years. I heard someone we had on recently, Dr. Diane, she was saying that it can take up to 5 years to really feel like a secure attachment with your partner. Greg, are you into attachment theory at all? We talk about it so much on our show.
I don't even know if I know what it is.
Okay, so attachment, it's very like clinical. It's something that's been around for decades, and basically it's a study of like how you were, your early relationships, and what attachment style that created in you. So, you know, there's secure, there's anxious, there's avoidant, there's disorganized, and whatever that in your early years can then most likely go into your relationships, your friendships, your romantic relationships, everything, and it can affect how those relationships play out.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you should read the book. It's called Attached by Levine.
I have no idea.
Not Adam Levine.
I don't know that I want to read a book by Adam Levine.
Something.
So
anyway, it's really great. Anyway, I kind of geek out on it, but what were you going to say, friend?
Well, no, so I was going to ask, because one of the things too, Greg, in your story is, you know, you gave a lot of credit to your recovery. Because that's also something that I think is important, is like, you have to have been through your shit and like gotten like a handle on your stuff, you know, because to me, I don't think you can, like, I know I wasn't healthy enough in my 20s to make a healthy relationship work. And and I guess I think that's really important. Like, how important do you think that was for you?
What, to make relationships work in my 20s?
No, no, no. So to me, it almost sounds like, you being in recovery, like you having been through sort of addiction, like blowing a hole into the middle of your life, and then having had to like repair and rebuild and heal that and find a different way of doing your life. Like
Mhm.
I think so many dating, so many people either are fuckers or deal with fuckers in relationship because they haven't like done the work to like heal their shit.
Yeah,
And I guess, um yeah, I guess, and also because you don't know how to have that good radar of like, oh, this person is not someone that I should trust or let into my life if you haven't done that work.
yeah. I think I got a lot of clarity, but because my main focus every day is to stay sober first. So I have a priority that's above my marriage in a way. I have to
Mm,
stay sober. Otherwise, I don't get to be married if I'm not. But
mm,
but uh but that puts the focus on that instead of the marriage. It takes some of the pressure off,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
I can only be sober one day at a time, just like I
mm,
can only be married one day at a time.
mm.
I don't have to be married for the rest of my life. I just have to be married today.
Oh, that's such a
I love
cool
that.
application.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super
Well,
helpful.
yeah.
No, I love that so much. I want to like sit on that for a second. Because what other ways is that so applicable in our lives? Like we don't have to be podcasters forever, but we have to be podcasters for today,
Yeah.
like what
Yeah,
I think
totally.
I think it takes away some of the pressures of our society and pressures that we place on ourselves if we could just focus, stay in the present and take one day at a time.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. It just is. I mean, that's how all of it is. I try really hard to stay present and want nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you, I mean, like, what what sort of advice or wisdom would you have for either people who are listening who are like in recovery and thinking about dating, or someone who maybe is, not in recovery themselves, but like newly dating someone who is?
Great question. Good
Hey,
job, friend.
thanks.
Well, relationships, I mean, most people recommend when you get sober to not get in a relationship for a year.
Mm,
Not get in a relationship doesn't mean you can't have sex. It just means you can't get tied up in somebody else. And I did that. I did what they recommended. I didn't get in a relationship for a year, which was hard. But
Mhm.
but but by the time I did get in a relationship, I think because when I'm not on drugs and alcohol, I'm present and available, and I have to feel my feelings and go through everything sober. So I'm much more aware of my surroundings and how I'm feeling and how other people are feeling. And, so it just makes it easier.
what how do you feel about relationships where one person is sober and one person isn't? Do you think that's harder? Do you think
Well,
it's
my
just
wife
very
drinks.
okay? I was gonna say, do you think it maybe varies on the individual too?
Yeah, it all depends on how comfortable you are around alcohol and drugs and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my wife doesn't drink a lot. She drinks very little, but she's not sober.
Yeah. Okay. Can we talk? I know we're running out of time here, but okay, you were saying that when you got sober, they were like, don't get in a relationship, but you can have sex. So I guess that kind of leads us into like casual sex. Like, how do
Mhm.
you feel about that? Because that can lead to sticky situations of one person feeling hurt, thinking the person was into them, or I don't know. Like, how do you think?
You have
Do you
to just
believe
be,
in?
you got to be really clear on the rules.
Okay.
You just have to be really clear. You have to say, we're having sex and we're just having sex. And this doesn't mean that we're going to be in a relationship. It just means that we want to fuck. And so don't expect me to be, you know what I mean? Don't expect me to be, I'm not signing up to be in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Did
I
it,
mean,
did that
it's a
ever,
weird conversation to have. And a lot of times you're in the throes of it before you know you want to have that conversation. But
yeah. I was gonna say, did that ever go badly for you?
yeah. I mean, there were times where the conversation was clear and then the person still wanted to make a relationship out of it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I was like, but we talked about this, you know, and so then you don't have sex with them anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, and to me, I think that's the biggest thing that sort of, the biggest reason people get hurt in those situations is that like the conversation is had, and well, sometimes it's that like the one person was like not clear, they were kind of wishy-washy, but like typically one of the people goes into that situation thinking, I know that he or she is saying that this won't turn into a relationship, but they're sort of secretly hoping that it will.
Yeah.
Right. And like
Yeah.
that to me seems like
Or that they can change it,
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
or the sex will be so good they'll change their mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, I think, a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, again, it's a really intimate thing to have sex, so it comes, when you have sex, it's intimate and it's sort of hard to deny it, and you got to be really strong-willed to be able to have sex and move on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I can.
What's wrong with it though?
Yeah.
No,
Sure.
you cannot.
Oh, no. I like catch feelings so fast. And it would be someone I'm like not attracted to, don't want to be with, or like the worst person. And it would be like, why isn't he calling?
That's funny.
Greg, what did you think of, were you on set for the movie at all? He's just not that into you.
Yeah, I'm in it.
What?
Yeah, I'm in it.
Which scene?
When Jennifer Aniston's at a wedding and she walks down the aisle with the dog,
Oh yeah.
I'm the priest.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I've seen it several times.
Yeah,
I've seen the movie several
Seriously, it's the most unwarranted cameo in the history of filmmaking. There's no need for it. It's just one shot of my face. That's it. Ridiculous.
Did you like how the movie portrayed your book?
No. I mean, I liked the movie, and they were very nice. The people that made it, like it was Drew Barrymore and her production company, and they were all lovely, and everyone was great. But at the end, they shouldn't have got back together.
Yeah.
I hated it.
Yeah, because that then sort of goes against the whole teaching of the book. Yeah.
Totally. She should have said, go away. And which would have been great. It would have been a really empowering moment and something that would have been like cool, but they didn't do it.
You're right. That would have been way more empowering.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, as a much younger version of myself, when I first watched it, it was like, oh my gosh, it all worked out. And now all I have to do is keep trying, and he's going to eventually change his mind, and he's going to come be my hero and rescue me from my pain and all of that.
Complete opposite of what the book's about.
Yeah. Which, and to me, like these messages in media and in our culture are like why people take so much bullshit from fuckers, like particularly women, right? Like every romantic comedy is like the guy is terrible, and then he comes and then he just
Carrie and Big on Sex and the City too.
Yeah.
Terrible relationship.
Horrible. So bad.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting. So like that trope of like, well, through persistence, like the terrible guy will become a good guy. Like that's a major like issue of like why I think our culture is unhealthy in the ways that it is. Another one, and you and I have talked about this, is like generations of men sort of being taught that like men can't help themselves, and it's so, you know what I'm saying? So like I'll just share something. Last night I met up with a friend, and also
you told me you couldn't meet up.
Also, that's funny. Last night I met up with a female friend of mine, and like And it ended up being the two of us hanging out with this male new friend of hers who like works with her. And my female friend is in a relationship that was like known to everybody. And we hung out, we had some dinner, they had a couple of drinks. And then I was like dropping them back off because they like are in this work situation where they like live where they work. And like this guy who like was like a nice dude, I thought was a really cool dude. We had some deep conversation. Like he like took a run at her at the end of the night, you know, like even though he knew she was in a relationship and all that stuff. And it's just like, I'm like, God, you know, I'm like, dudes, like do better. Like,
Come
why can't
on.
dudes do better?
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
You know, it was just like so disappointing.
Lame.
Yeah. You know,
Could have been the booze.
yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that had so much to do
It
with
gives you a
it.
little courage, and then you're like, you start
Yeah.
going, oh, well, maybe,
Yeah.
you know.
Greg, the number of married men that hit on me is wild. Like,
Really?
oh yeah. Like I'm not like actively pursue, like constantly, like DMs, messages, like not phone messages, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's wild. I mean, I guess it's not. I guess I don't know. It
Well,
just
and also
sucks.
like people you meet in real life.
Oh
too.
yeah, I'll meet
yeah.
them and they'll attach to me because I'm this bright, sunny, like outgoing person. They're like, wow, she's really
Yeah.
fun, you know, and she seems like a nice escape from my marriage. And then they pursue hard. It's crazy.
Wow, that's wild. Disappointing.
It's very disappointing.
It's really disappointing.
Well, I think we should probably wrap this up. Greg, do you have any last words of wisdom for our dating and relationship listeners? Wait, that doesn't make
It's
sense.
so funny. People always ask me that. I don't really. You know, be yourself. I mean, anything I would say would just sound like a
Greeting card?
like a shitty Instagram post.
Yeah.
You know,
Like you're a meme, an inspirational meme.
an inspirational meme.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say, you know, one of the things I appreciated about like reading your book recently is just you cannot reinforce enough, like know your worth and like just set good boundaries and like don't have time for people that aren't treating you like you're worth.
Yeah.
You know?
Show up for what's showing up for you.
Yeah. Oh,
Who's showing up? What's showing up? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and what's not.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
this is, you know, that's the thing with the coaching. Like, I set out to coach women in relationships, but I kept getting people who wanted work with their comedy careers and that kind of stuff. So I gotta go with what's showing up for me
Yeah.
and build the business based on that idea as opposed to trying to force something else to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Greg, tell us all the ways that our listeners can find you.
It's really simple. It's Gregors on Instagram, and Don't Take Bullshit from Fuckers podcast.
Yeah. And there you go. And you can find all the links and everything to all of the stuff that you do from there.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was such a pleasure.
You guys are great. This was really fun.
Good.
And
Awesome.
I'm so glad.
And you're going to come on our show, right, Jared?
Yeah, I'm in.
Great.
Let's do
Great.
it.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, it'll be fun.
Awesome. Okay, Greg, don't go anywhere. I'm just going to stop this recording.